Greetings and salutations, everybody. Here's a little surprise that it's not the second, that Friday that I said I'd be coming back with some more videos, but a couple days earlier, in that I wanted to do a quick 2025 recap of a few titles which really stuck out for me over the course of the year. But rather than stitching in any videos that I made for some of these titles that kind of pads out the video, instead I'm going to link to them in the comments, or you can just go to my channel and do a search for each title if you haven't seen those. And I'll probably even put a little playlist of the ones mentioned in here that I've already done videos for at the end of this one, which you can just select that once the video concludes if you stick around to the end. But yeah, it was a really great year for horror, even really light ones or more thriller-like ones, or even horror comedies. We really had a great mix this year. For me, it also wasn't just the new stuff. I did find a lot of older stuff that I either revisited because it had been a long time, or ones that I just finally got around to seeing for the first time. But for this video, what I wanted to do was mention the new stuff for this year, stuff that either came out this year or finally got a theatrical release this year. A good chunk of these I never made videos for, so I'm going to do those ones first. So let's start first with Final Destination Bloodlines. Now, first up, I don't really care for this franchise for the most part. You know, I remember liking the first one all right. I think I'd seen one more, maybe part of part 3, because I did remember some of that. But they just aren't really my thing. So I'd rewatched those first two and went through the rest of those entries, the ones that I hadn't seen before, simply because of Tony Todd. I'd wanted to see his final performance in this film. Now, all the entries in the franchise had their pluses and minuses to me. You know, pluses are that they are very unique and they can definitely be a lot of fun. But the minuses being that that fun can kind of be pushed a little bit too silly for what I'm really looking for at some times. I kind of joke that the Final Destination films are to horror what Transformers is to like sci-fi action. You know, they definitely have their fans, but they're not really my thing, even though I can find some stuff to like in all of them overall. But in the case of Bloodlines, I really feel like they pulled things back in, they focused a bit better, and put something special up. While overall that franchise wasn't really for me, Bloodlines added some layers to the story and the franchise, you know, everything in general, which definitely made it worth checking out, even if not a super fan of the franchise. And especially to get to see Tony Todd's final performance there, which, you know, knowing he was sick and fighting through it to just complete his scenes and knew he was on his way out, you know, really brought some tears into play during that. If you only ever thought these films were kind of okay or so-so, I would still say to go ahead and check this one out, because in my opinion, and again, I'm kind of the outsider for this franchise, I do think that this was one of their best entries, if not the best. But next up, we have one that's completely different as far as the overall tone, which is Bring Her Back, which was disgusting, shocking, and dramatic and heartbreaking. I was told that watching this movie, prepare for it to ruin your entire day, and I totally understand what they meant by that. Now, this story centers on a pair of step-siblings who recently became orphaned and move in with a new foster mother. The sister, being blind, has a great pairing in this, as that the woman's daughter who had passed away was also blind, so this house is already set up to kind of adjust to and provide for her needs. While her brother is turning 18 soon and treated very differently, since he'll probably be on his way out soon. But sinister stuff is kind of brewing in the form at first of seeing this other little boy that the woman has living there, who's practically feral. You know, he's nonverbal, needs lots of help and attention. But to leave the spoilers out, there's some graphic gore in this. In this one, you will kind of need to prep for that. You know, there's skin peeling, there's teeth crumbling and shattering out, really gross and shocking stuff. But believe it or not, the gore isn't really what sells this film. Ultimately, this is a story about loss and grief and desperation. Highly recommended, but prepared to wince here and there, and maybe to plan something a little bit more light to watch afterward. Don't be an idiot like me, who about an hour after finishing this film, I went to watch another film here, another one that was recommended, another standout for the year, which you've no doubt heard about, is Weapons. Now, for Weapons, and I'm sure you've heard a lot about this one, I went in pretty much blind when it came out, but the basic idea, which won't spoil anything about it, is that at around 2 a.m., a bunch of kids woke up, walked out, and ran away. They were all from one class, and there's only one kid left in that class. So, you know, I always like this aspect of any kind of horror or thriller, is that mystery aspect brought into it. It's also non-linear as well, as at times we kind of see something weird or crazy happen and later get to see what had led up to that. We have a really great cast in this, and see our town parents desperate to find out what happened to their kids, placing blame and suspicion on the kid's teacher, and really be at their wits' end, while us as the audience are completely on board with the unraveling of this mystery along the way in those little segments that are shown to us out of order. Especially when something strange happens seemingly out of nowhere, such as a man running across town, arms at his sides, eyes wide open, bloody, and obsessively attacking somebody else. Then we get to see later on what kind of led up to that. There is some violence in a couple of scenes here, and there's a couple where their gore is a bit rough, but it's really worth the watch. And my only complaint about this one was that it was put on way too high of a pedestal for me. I expected a sure 10 out of 10 kind of film, as people were really talking this one up, but I feel like it was more of an 8. Great stuff, worth checking out, but you definitely want to judge for yourself on this one. For the fourth and final of the films that I hadn't made a video for yet is one that I do plan to make, a more in-depth video regarding more specifics as to what I loved about it one of these days. And you'll no doubt have heard a lot about this one as well, which is Sinners by filmmaker Ryan Coogler, who also brought us Black Panther, the Creed films, and Fruitvale Station. Also starring Michael B. Jordan and Michael B. Jordan, as he plays identical twins in this. But we have others in this star-studded cast, such as the absolutely gorgeous Wunmi Mosaku, Delroy Lindo, and Haley Steinfeld. Now this is kind of like a period piece set in the 1930s in Mississippi, involving twin brothers moving back to town from recently being up in Chicago, and they're setting up a juke joint. On the bits of their their history, both in and away from town, we the locals and the lives and everything that they live here coming to light, their relationships being patched up or reconnected. We have a lot in this film that can easily carry the film on its own simply as a drama, with no horror aspects even needed, as these characters were written and performed excellently. But on top of all that, we do have those two things. First, we have the music. Heavy blues music in this. Not a musical, as the music doesn't drive the story forward in a traditional way, but it's a very important part of the movie, as the opening even mentions that music can be so powerful that it can bridge cultures, and it can open up the door to a spirit world. It can link the past, present, and future, but can also attract something evil as well. So it's a very important part of the film. And while it doesn't drive the story in a storytelling way, such as Les Mis or Phantom or Wicked or Sound of Music, it is in and of itself central to this story. But second is that horror aspect, as there are vampires in this. How and why they are there really works well, same as the vampire rules they have in this one, as well as the magic and supernatural kind of rules in the film as well. There's been a lot of hype for this film, and I feel fortunate that I saw it kind of before a lot of that had really spread, so it wasn't spoiled for me the way that Weapons kind of felt like it was, that it was put on a little bit too high of a pedestal. This one, I really felt like the hype was well deserved, for the acting, the story, the effects, the tech they used to make it and do this process of creating the identical twins in it. The cinematography, everything in it really is great, and again, especially that soundtrack. Now, if checking it out, just know that while some have been putting comparisons out there to From Dusk Till Dawn, that's simply for a point where there is kind of a bit of a left turn going towards vampires. Outside of that, in my opinion, it is far, far different, and you really can't even compare the two movies. You'll experience a lot more drama about the lives of these characters, about black people living through Jim Crow, the blues, and so on, and then the vampires are worked in, but they're not forced or shoehorned into the story. They fit with what's happening in the story, with what's happening with the music, and so on. Okay, so now that those are out of the way, here are some quicker ones for ones that I did make videos for throughout the course of the year. Like I said, I will link to them in the description or in that playlist at the end, or just search for the name of this film in my channel if you haven't seen that video. First up, let's go for the Toxic Avenger remake. Now, or reboot, or whatever it was. It was so different from the original, but not only was it really its own thing, it was so in the spirit of Troma that it worked great and can be enjoyed completely separately. I can't even really compare it to the original. It feels like a very different film that yet is very Troma-like anyways. Really a separate one to enjoy, a lot of fun. Next one I'll say is Clown in a Cornfield. Technically I didn't do a video just on Clown in a Cornfield. I did one that was kind of part of a bigger Halloween video about clown related films. So that's the one that I'll kind of link to in here. But this film is dumb in name, but the concept works. It's simple slasher stuff. A lot of fun, some cool twists that make the film work and really just be a lot of fun, but not too much comedy to make it too light. Now it's from the same filmmaker as Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, so if you're familiar with that and keep that in mind, you'll know what to expect. Definitely want to queue up once a year around Halloween time, maybe with some other clown related films. Next up we have The Wolfman, which I liked and many really didn't, so this one's kind of tricky. Personally I really enjoyed it, but I can see why some others didn't. It takes a werewolf idea and pushes it towards more of like a viral infection, making somebody more animalistic rather than the traditional looking werewolf. I can see why some didn't enjoy it, but personally, outside of the film being a bit too dark and the mother character not seeming old enough, you'll have to see it to understand, I really did enjoy it. Now, speaking of transformations for Wolfman and all that, The Ugly Stepsister. This one is getting nominated for some awards now. It's a foreign film, so there are some subtitles to contend with, which honestly I only dislike because the film is so gorgeous. I don't want my eyes to have to then focus on what I'm reading to watch it. But this film kind of focuses on one of the ugly stepsisters in the Cinderella story. Think the other side of the story, kind of like Wicked, but no singing and a lot less green. Seeing this girl try to change herself by any means to be able to win this prince, even in graphic and disturbing ways. Now closing in on our last few, one I'm going to rewatch soon because I really enjoyed it, and that's for The Dead Thing by filmmaker Elric Kane, who I first came across via the Colors of the Dark podcast, which he hosts with fellow filmmaker Rebecca McKendry, who I believe have also covered some of her films before on here. But he was very tight-lipped about this one on the podcast, and I can kind of see why. Going in as blind as possible is best, with at most knowing it's about this kind of aimless woman, bored with life. She's been serial dating, nothing good happening really. She's just dead inside. But she's meeting this special someone with a weird twist as she's getting to know them. That's about as much as I would like to even say. Even my video, I'm very careful to split things up in that so it doesn't spoil anything if you haven't seen that film yet. Got a couple more left here, so let's continue with Shelby Oaks from first-time filmmaker Chris Stuckman, which mixes found footage with documentary style with standard storytelling in this film, which is involving the disappearance of some YouTubers who are investigating and exploring abandoned places and urban legends. The sister of one of those YouTubers being our star, our kind of focus of this film. If you enjoy found footage related and documentary related films, you will definitely enjoy this one and how it's all put together. Now closing in toward the end, probably the trickiest one to talk about, I would say, is Companion. Now this one was tricky because I feel like going in as blind as possible is best, but the video I put together was split into 3 parts. So the first chunk of it is just completely blind, vanilla, just overall what to expect with the tone. And then the second portion of it is, if you've seen the trailer, it'll only speak about what's been noted in the trailer. Third part of the video, full discussion type stuff. Definitely one that I really, and even having seen it on the rewatch, it still works really well. And finally, Guillermo del Toro's remake of Frankenstein. Of the original book and other film adaptations as inspiration. I wish I'd made it out to the theater for this one to see it on a giant screen, as it was absolutely gorgeous, but I can see, I've heard some people not really taking to it. Possibly if they were, making their main comparison to previous films rather than the book, or even the other way around, if there were somebody who is more familiar with the book than those adaptations, as there are a lot of big leaps and major changes that he made to the storyline of the book and to what we've seen in other films to kind of meld both of those together. But for me, I really thought that that was the best route to go with this adaptation, because we're kind of seeing the best of both of the original book and the best of what we've seen in adaptations brought together into one film, which is a bit long, but the pace actually works really well, and I was never bored during it. It was definitely really cool. But yeah, very long year, but a lot of good stuff. But those are some of the films that stuck out for this year as far as the new films went. There were several others I saw. I saw in total about 185 horror films over the course of the year, which is not to mention the non-horror titles. And I also, in horror, I revisited all of the Conjuring films in prep for that final film, and I made a video for that, which I'll link to in a moment as well. And this coming year, they're going to be supposedly doing the last of the Insidious films, so I'll be revisiting that franchise and do a similar kind of video for that sometime next year. And like I said, next year will be a tad different because it seems both the viewers and myself have become a bit burned out on this content format of the really quick kind of recs. But hopefully I can regain some momentum with a little bit more of a deeper dive into the specifics that I like about the films, more spoilery kind of stuff, with every now and then just putting up one of those quick recommendations. But so to recap, the ones for this year which really stuck out to me were Sinners, Toxic Avenger, Frankenstein, Weapons, Shelby Oaks, Bring Her Back, Companion, The Ugly Stepsister, Clown in a Cornfield, Final Destination, Bloodlines, The Dead Thing, and Wolfman. So be sure to check out the description for the videos or the playlist coming up in just a moment in one of these corners. Thanks again for sticking around this year and through the end of this video. If you enjoyed, please give me a thumbs up. If not already subscribed, consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next one.